So imagine you are walking down a brightly lit, perfectly flat hallway,
Okay, I'm picturing it.
but every few feet there's this dark shadow cast across the floor, maybe from a structural beam above you.
Right, pretty common.
Yeah, but now imagine that your eyes process light in such a way that you have absolutely zero depth perception.
Oh, wow.
To you, that shadow doesn't just look like a shadow, it actually looks like a bottomless physical hole in the ground.
That sounds terrifying, honestly.
Exactly. And you have to walk over these dark voids every single day. I mean, the sheer anxiety of that alone would completely rewrite your stress levels, your behavior, and, well, your physical health over time.
Oh, totally. It would be exhausting.
Right. And if you are a dairy cow living in an outdated agricultural setup, that is literally your daily reality.
It is, yeah. It's this profound level of environmental stress that goes completely unnoticed by the humans working in the exact same building.
Because we just don't see it that way.
Right. We assume that because we can see fine, the animals are fine. But as we're going to see today, that assumption leaves just an enormous amount of health and potential output on the table.
Which brings us perfectly to the mission for your custom deep dive today. We are exploring this really fascinating document produced for AHDB Dairy and NFU Energy back in August 2021.
Yeah, the Dairy Lighting Technology Review.
That's the one. And I know what you listening right now might be thinking. You probably aren't managing a massive herd of dairy cows.
Probably not, no.
But the insights buried in this research, I mean, they're completely universal. This is basically a masterclass in how a slight tweak to an environment's lighting can essentially biohack biology.
It really is.
It alters hormones, it massively increases productivity, and it even pays for itself in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, the central premise here is just that light is not merely illumination. It's a biological signal.
A signal, right.
Exactly. So before we even discuss the specific LED technology or the financial returns, we kind of have to understand the mechanism first.
Yeah, let's start right there.
We need to look at how a photon of light hitting the retina of an animal actually translates into a physical output, like milk.
Right, because light isn't a food source. It's not like you're giving them a nutrient supplement.
Exactly.
So how does flipping a literal light switch change the biological output of a 1,500-pound animal?
Well, it essentially comes down to a rhythm the report calls the long day photo period, or LDPP.
LDPP, got it.
Right. The research establishes that exposing a lactating dairy cow to a highly specific cycle, we're talking 16 to 18 hours of continuous light, followed by 6 to 8 hours of near total darkness, it triggers this massive systemic hormonal shift.
Just from the light timing.
Just from the timing, yeah.
Yeah.
And by adhering strictly to this cycle, farmers are actually seeing milk yields increase by up to 2 to 3 kilograms per day per cow.
Wait, really? Just from leaving the lights on for 16 hours?
Yes. 2 to 3 kilograms extra every single day.
That's incredible. So we are effectively tricking the cow's biology into believing it is perpetually the peak of summer.
Exactly, yeah. You're taking advantage of a deeply ingrained evolutionary response.
So what's actually happening inside the cow, like chemically?
What's fascinating here is the biological mechanism at play. During a natural long summer day or an artificial LDPP schedule, that extended light exposure acts as a suppressant on the cow's production of melatonin.
Okay, melatonin. We usually just think of that as the sleep hormone, right?
Right, that's how humans usually think of it. But in dairy cattle, it actually acts as a limiting factor on production. The research clearly shows that high levels of melatonin reduce milk yield.
Oh, I see. So if melatonin is basically the brake pedal, suppressing it means we are, what, taking our foot off the brake?
That's a great way to put it. You're taking your foot off the brake and simultaneously hitting the accelerator.
Really? How so?
Well, when you suppress that melatonin, you inadvertently increase the circulating levels of two other crucial hormones. The first one is IGF-1.
IGF-1, which is an insulin-like growth hormone, right?
Exactly. It's responsible for nutrient metabolism. And the second one is prolactin, which is the primary hormone essential for actually maintaining lactation.
So the light is literally signaling the cow's body to metabolize its feed more efficiently.
Yes, exactly.
And I noticed in the review that this hormonal cascade, it doesn't just benefit the adult cows that are already producing milk, it impacts the younger animals too, right?
Oh, definitely. It has a huge impact on them. The heifers, so the young Female cows that haven't had a calf yet, they actually experience accelerated growth and improved feed efficiency under this exact same 16-hour light regime.
Just by being in the same lighting setup.
Yeah, they're consuming the exact same amount of dry matter as they were before, but their bodies are utilizing those nutrients far more efficiently, all because of that shift in IGF-1.
That is wild.
It even lowers the risk of difficult births later on in their development.
Okay, so this is actually where my own intuition kind of led me astray when I was reading through the sources.
Oh yeah, how so?
Well, if 16 hours of continuous light turns the animal into this hyper-efficient milk-producing engine, why stop at 16?
Ah, I see where you're going.
Right. I mean, if a farmer pays to install these new lights, wouldn't the logical, purely capitalist move be to just leave the lights on 24 hours a day? Just get even more milk?
You would think so, right? And that is actually a very common misconception in the industry. But the report emphatically busts that myth.
So the 24-hour lighting regime is a bad idea.
It is actively detrimental. I mean, all mammals, cows included obviously, rely on a circadian rhythm, a fundamental day and night cycle.
Right. We all need sleep.
Exactly. The 24-hour lighting schedule completely obliterates that natural rhythm, and it puts the animal into a state of chronic stress.
And chronic stress always has a physical manifestation.
Always.
In fact, the report specifically warns that 24-hour lighting raises something called the somatic cell count in the milk.
Yes, it does.
Can you walk us through the why there? Like, how does a disrupted sleep cycle lead to a higher cell count in the actual milk?
Oh, it's a direct immune response. When the circadian rhythm is suppressed by perpetual light, the cow's baseline stress hormones like cortisol, they just begin to spike.
Okay.
And we know that high cortisol suppresses the immune system. So when the immune system is compromised, the cow is suddenly far more susceptible to minor infections in the udder.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and to fight those minor infections, the cow's body sends white blood cells, which are the somatic cells, straight into the mammary glands.
So a high somatic cell count essentially just means there are more white blood cells in the milk,
Exactly.
which I imagine lowers the overall quality and shelf life of the product.
Precisely. You basically end up with stressed animals, degraded milk quality, and zero extra yield compared to the 16-hour schedule. You are literally just wasting electricity to make your herd sick.
Wow. Okay, that makes perfect sense for the lactating cows. But what about the dry cows?
The ones on their resting period.
Right, typically the 2 months or so before they have their next calf. Do they also get the 16 hours of light?
Actually, no. They require the exact opposite approach.
The opposite.
Yeah, during the dry period, the biological goal completely changes. These cows require a short day photo period, or STPP.
Okay, so what does that look like?
That means restricting them to just 8 hours of light and a full 16 hours of darkness.
Because giving them more darkness spikes their melatonin again.
Right.
But wait, why do we want the melatonin high during this resting phase if it limits milk production?
This is where the biohacking becomes truly elegant, I think.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier that melatonin limits immediate milk production, right?
Yeah.
But during the dry phase, elevated melatonin does something really remarkable. It upregulates the expression of prolactin receptors in the cow's mammary, immune, and hepatic tissues.
Oh, wow. So it's basically building more receptors to catch the hormone later on.
Yes, you are fundamentally remodeling the cow's cellular infrastructure during her downtime.
That's brilliant.
It is. When that cow does give birth and begins her next lactation cycle, the prolactin just floods her system, and she now has significantly more receptors ready to utilize it.
Because she spent her dry period in the dark.
Exactly. The report even notes that subjecting dry cows to this short day treatment can increase their subsequent lactation period by 3 to 4 kilograms a day.
3 to 4 extra kilograms. You are literally securing next season's profit margin purely by enforcing darkness today.
It's an incredible return on investment.
That really is incredible. Okay, so we have the timing established. 16 hours of light for the producers, 8 hours of light for the resters.
Right.
But timing is only one variable here. Let's look at the shape and intensity of the light itself, which kind of brings us back to that terrifying scenario we opened with regarding the shadows.
Yes, the black holes in the floor.
Exactly. So to fix the physical environment, we have to measure the illuminance, right? Like how much light is actually hitting a surface.
Right. And the scientific standard here is measured in lux.
Okay, lux.
The agricultural recommendation is highly specific in the report. They want to see 100 to 200 lux in the general cattle housing, 50 to 100 lux in the passageways, and exactly 200 lux in the milking parlor.
Okay, for those of us who don't carry a light meter around in our pockets, What does 200 lux actually look like?
That's a fair question.
Like, are we talking about a surgical operating room or more like a dim living room?
Well, a standard, brightly lit, modern office building is typically around 300 to 500 lux.
Hmm.
A cozy, dim living room in the evening might be around 50 lux. So 200 lux is bright, it's clear, and it's easy to read a book in, but it's certainly not blinding.
Got it. Now, if the goal is just to hit 200 lux in a massive barn, I imagine the cheapest way to do that is just to hang a few gigantic stadium-style spotlights from the
Oh,
rafters.
absolutely the cheapest way.
But that takes us back to the cow's vision, doesn't it?
It does, and doing that would be disastrous. What's fascinating here is that cows are dichromatic, meaning they see a more limited color spectrum than humans do, mostly short to medium wavelengths.
Right.
But the really critical factor is that they have monocular vision. Their eyes are positioned on the sides of their heads.
Which is an evolutionary adaptation, right? To give them a nearly 360-degree field of view to watch for predators.
Exactly. But the trade-off for seeing behind you so well is that you lose binocular overlap in the front.
And without binocular overlap, depth perception is virtually non-existent.
Right. So when a cow approaches a harsh shadow cast by, say, a feed trough or a structural pillar from one of those stadium lights, they cannot visually determine if it is a flat shadow or a physical drop-off.
They just perceive it as a void.
Exactly. So naturally, they're going to balk. They freeze, they refuse to walk forward, and the stress hormones just surge.
Which brings the entire movement of a 250 cow herd to a grinding halt.
It causes total chaos in the barn.
So the engineering challenge for the lighting isn't just making the room bright. It's painting a completely flat, shadowless floor for them to walk on.
Yes, which necessitates a lighting plan with many lower height, evenly distributed fixtures, rather than just a few massive spotlights at the ceiling.
You're designing for psychological welfare as much as biological stimulation.
Precisely. You have to design the light for the animal's specific sensory experience.
Okay, that covers the 16 hours of daytime for the producing cows. But what happens during the 8 hours of darkness?
The night shift.
Right, because a modern dairy farm doesn't just completely shut down at night. The human operatives still need to walk through the barns, observe the herd, check for any animals in distress.
Right, you can't just leave them completely unmonitored.
And you definitely can't do that in pitch blackness. But if you turn on a bright flashlight, wouldn't that break the cow's dark cycle?
It would. The report dictates that overnight observation lighting must remain under 10 lux to avoid triggering a daytime hormonal response.
10 lux is basically nothing.
It's very dim. But there is a biological loophole that farmers can exploit here, and it's brilliant. Red light.
Let me guess, this goes back to the cows being dichromatic.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Cows lack the specific retinal receptor required to see long wavelength red light.
Oh, wow.
So when you bathe the barn in red light, the cows just perceive it as very dim grayscale. Their brains do not register it as daylight at all, so the melatonin production remains completely uninterrupted.
But humans are trichromatic.
Right.
We have the red receptor. So to the farmer, the barn is glowing red like a photographic darkroom, allowing them to see perfectly well while the cows effectively think they are just resting in the dark.
Exactly. It's a perfect convergence of human occupational safety and animal welfare.
That is so clever. Well, let's transition from the biology to the actual hardware itself, because the review mentions a pretty significant regulatory shift that's sort of forcing the hand of a lot of farmers, especially in the UK.
Yeah, the industry is currently undergoing a massive forced transition. Historically, the default lighting for these huge agricultural sheds has been high-pressure sodium fixtures.
Those are the really heavy units that cast that yellowish-orange glow, right?
Right, those, or just standard fluorescent tubes. However, due to environmental regulations and energy efficiency standards, the UK is actually phasing out the sale of most fluorescent tubes.
Oh, I see.
So the entire agricultural sector is basically having to pivot to LED technology right now.
Which, honestly, LEDs make obvious sense for a barn anyway. I mean, they turn on instantly, they don't hum, and they can be manufactured in completely sealed, waterproof units.
The IP65 and IP67 ratings, yeah.
Right. A farmer can literally take a high-pressure hose and just wash the manure and dust right off the light fixture without ruining it.
Which is a huge practical benefit on a farm.
Definitely. But when I was reading through the source material, I noticed there was this fierce debate happening in the marketplace about the actual color spectrum of these new LEDs.
Oh, yes. Because LEDs are so easily customizable. lighting manufacturers have definitely seized an opportunity here.
Marketing, basically.
Exactly. You will see catalogs offering highly specialized quote-unquote dairy lights. These fixtures are engineered to output a very specific blue spectrum light, usually targeted right at the 460 to 480 nanometer range.
And what's the pitch for those?
The marketing claim is that this exact blue wavelength is scientifically the most effective at suppressing melatonin in the cow's brain.
Okay, I have to ask the skeptical question here. If I'm a farmer and I'm operating on incredibly tight margins, do I actually need to buy the hyper-expensive, custom-engineered blue cow lights? Or is this just clever marketing upselling me on something a standard light bulb can do?
Well, it's a highly nuanced debate. The
Yeah.
specialized blue lights absolutely do suppress melatonin effectively. I mean, the science there is totally sound.
Right.
However, the review highlights newer comprehensive studies arguing that the precise wavelength is actually a secondary factor.
Oh, really?
Mm.
What's the primary factor then?
The primary drivers of the biological response are simply the duration and the intensity of the light.
So just hitting the 16 hours and the 200 lux?
Exactly. The data suggests that a standard high-quality, cool white LED, something in the 5,000 to 6,500 Kelvin range, it naturally mimics the spectrum of daylight anyway.
Right.
And it contains more than enough blue light within its broad spectrum to trigger the necessary hormonal cascade in the cows.
So you don't need the specialized blue ones.
Not necessarily. And furthermore, working under stark, heavily blue-tinted light can be really fatiguing for the human workers in the barn.
Oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, a standard cool white LED provides a much more natural, comfortable working environment for the staff while still delivering all the biological benefits to the herd.
So what's the overall consensus then?
The consensus is that executing the fundamentals flawlessly so, efficient LEDs, a strict 16-hour timer, and a uniform 200 lux without shadows, that will deliver the vast majority of the biological gains without requiring premium, specialized hardware.
Okay, let's take that hardware and plug it into a real-world spreadsheet. Because the theory is beautiful, and the biology totally makes sense, but retrofitting a massive agricultural facility with dozens of new waterproof LED fixtures and automated timers, I mean, that sounds incredibly expensive.
It's definitely an investment.
So how does this actually pencil out for a working farm?
The financial calculus here is arguably the most compelling part of the entire review. It really breaks down into a two-phase return on investment.
Okay, phase one.
The first phase is purely about energy efficiency. If a farmer simply swaps out old, inefficient 400-watt high-pressure sodium lights for modern 75-watt LED equivalents,
Yeah,
they immediately cut their lighting energy costs by about 30%.
a 30% drop in utility costs is fantastic. But like we said, LEDs require a significant upfront capital expenditure.
They do.
How long does it typically take for those energy savings alone to pay off the new hardware?
Well, relying solely on the energy savings, the payback period is typically around 8 years,
8 years.
which is still a solid, safe investment considering industrial LEDs will generally outlast that 8-year window anyway.
Sure, but an 8-year wait to break even isn't exactly going to get anyone's heart racing.
No, probably not.
But here is where the biohacking alters the math completely, right? What happens when we factor the biological yield back into the equation?
This is where it gets crazy. If you take those exact same LED fixtures, and rather than just leaving them on haphazardly, you strictly enforce the 16-hour long-day photo period, the economics just explode.
Walk me through the numbers.
Let's look at a standard herd of 250 lactating cows. As we established, the LDPP hormonal shift increases yield by roughly 2 kilograms per day per cow.
Right?
That is an extra 500 kilograms, or about 480 liters of milk, generated every single day purely from tweaking the light.
Okay, let's do the math on that. If we assume a milk value of, say, 30 pence a liter, and maybe subtract a penny or so for the extra processing and cooling costs, that is an additional 140 pounds of pure revenue hitting the farm's books every single day.
Exactly. And when you apply that daily 140-pound revenue boost against the initial capital cost of the LED hardware, that 8-year payback period just vanishes.
It becomes what?
The investment pays for itself in roughly 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the industry you work in, whatever it may be. What structural, facility-wide upgrade can you implement that completely pays for itself entirely in a month and a half?
It's almost unheard of in modern business.
It is staggering. And what I love is that the review doesn't just rely on theoretical models for this. It actually provides real case studies of farmers navigating this exact transition.
Yeah, the case studies are fantastic. Like Ed Towers, for instance.
Yes, the farmer in Lancashire.
Right. He manages a herd of Jersey cows that were housed in an older shed, which was illuminated by just two dim, outdated sodium lights.
And Ed is the perfect example that you do not need to hire a team of Silicon Valley engineers to achieve these results. He took an incredibly pragmatic, almost DIY approach.
He really did. Rather than buying high-end agricultural fixtures, he literally sourced cheap, wholesale festoon lights.
The heavy-duty string lights used on construction sites, right?
Exactly those. He just strung them up above the stalls.
Yeah.
And to ensure he was hitting the biological threshold, he didn't even buy a professional light meter. He simply downloaded a free light meter app on his iPhone.
That's amazing. And the crucial detail from the report that I noticed is that he didn't just hold the phone up at his own eye level.
Right, he crouched down.
He crouched down and measured the lux at the cow's eye level because that is where the photons actually matter.
Exactly the right approach.
Yeah.
So he wired the string lights into a basic timer set for 16 hours on, 8 hours off. His total system cost was around 600 pounds.
And what was his yield increase?
His Jersey cows saw a daily increase of 2 liters per cow. He achieved an all-time high yield for his herd with string lights and a smartphone.
That is just brilliant. But then on the flip side, you have farmers taking the more professional, fully integrated route, like John Booth down in Wales.
Yeah, John's setup is very impressive. He invested about 5,000 pounds upgrading his facilities to professional high bay LEDs, but he also integrated this automated sunrise and sunset dimming feature.
Which sounds fancy, but what's the actual benefit of the dimming?
That dimming feature is brilliant for animal welfare. Rather than the lights just snapping on at full 200 lux intensity and startling the herd, which causes stress, they slowly fade up over 30 minutes and then fade down in the evening.
Oh, that makes sense. Just mimicking natural sunlight.
Exactly. His system also utilizes a daylight sensor. So if the natural sun comes through the barn's skylights and hits the 200 lux threshold on its own, the artificial lights automatically dim themselves to save energy.
I read that John had to fix a minor wiring issue initially, but once the system was running flawlessly, the changes were almost immediate, right?
Oh, yeah. Within 2 weeks, he reported significant improvements in the herd's overall calmness, their movement through the facility, and most importantly, their fertility rates.
Which goes back to the stress reduction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The reduction in environmental stress pays dividends across every single aspect of the animal's life.
It's all connected. But the report does also offer a bit of a cautionary tale, just to balance out the success stories. There was a farmer named Mark Burgess.
Ah, yes, Mark.
He spent 6,000 pounds outfitting his new cattle housing with these beautiful new LED fixtures. And he noted improved fertility, but he made a critical error in his methodology, didn't he?
He did. He fell into the exact trap we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
He is running his expensive new LEDs 24 hours a day.
Just leaving them on constantly.
Yeah. The logic was likely that brighter lights mean more eating, which means more milk. But by leaving them on perpetually, he is completely suppressing the herd's circadian rhythm.
He is inviting that cortisol spike, lowering their immune response, and risking a higher somatic cell count, like we talked about.
Exactly. He has the right hardware, but the totally wrong biological application.
So what's the fix for him?
Well, the review strongly recommends that he transition to the 16-hour LDPP timer immediately. It points out that the true gold standard for any dairy farm isn't just installing bright lights, it is professional zoning.
Zoning, like separating the different groups.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to architect the facility so that lactating cows are grouped in one brightly lit 16-hour zone, while the dry cows are housed in a completely separate, heavily shaded 8-hour zone.
That makes total sense. When you align the environmental design with the specific biological phase of the animal, you just maximize both the holistic health and the lifetime economic yield of the entire herd.
Right. It's about working with their biology, not against it.
Well, to bring all of these threads together for you listening, this deep dive is never really just about the agricultural logistics of replacing light bulbs.
No, not at all.
It is a profound demonstration of how invisible forces in our environment, the specific timing, the exact intensity, even the shadows on the floor, they completely dictate biological performance.
It really illustrates that biology is not just a static machine that requires fuel to run. Biology is an incredibly sensitive receiver.
That's a great way to frame it, a receiver.
It is constantly scanning the environment for signals, taking cues on how to behave, when to grow, and how to allocate its energy. When we understand those signals, we can design an environment that works in absolute harmony with the biology.
And that reality leaves us with a final, really lingering thought to consider. We have just spent the last 18 minutes dissecting how manipulating the brightness and spectrum of a few LED panels can profoundly biohack a 1,500-pound cow.
Right.
It alters their metabolism, their stress levels, their cellular infrastructure, and their daily output.
Which naturally forces us to kind of look in the mirror.
Exactly. What is our own modern environment doing to us? I mean, we live in a world of perpetual blue screen lit artificial environments.
We really do.
We stare at heavily backlit phones in bed. We work under flat, fluorescent Ovis panels at midnight. We binge television in the dark. If this type of artificial lighting is powerful enough to completely rewrite a dairy cow's hormonal cascade and immune system, what is it doing to human biology without us even realizing it?
It's a slightly terrifying thought.
Have we essentially trapped ourselves in a perpetual, stressful, 24-hour photo period?
It's definitely a question that completely reframes how you look at the glow of a screen late at night.
Something to ponder the next time you reach for your phone in the dark, or even just look at the lighting in your own workspace. Thank you for joining us on this custom deep dive into the hidden power of light. We really hope it sparked a few aha moments for you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.